Penguin Random House Audio presents On Impeachment, The Presidency on Trial. Edited with an introduction by Corey Brettschneider. Series editor Corey Brettschneider. Read for you by Desmond Manny. On Impeachment. Corey Brettschneider is a professor of political science at Brown University, where he teaches constitutional law and politics, as well as a visiting professor of law at Fordham University Law School. He has also been a visiting professor at Harvard Law School and the University of Chicago Law School. His writing has appeared in the New York Times, Politico, and the Washington Post. He is the author of The Oath and the Office, A Guide to the Constitution for Future Presidents, 2 books about constitutional law and civil liberties, and numerous articles published in academic journals and law reviews. His constitutional law casebook is widely used in classrooms throughout the United States. Brettschneider holds a Ph.D. in politics from Princeton University and a J.D. from Stanford Law School. Series Introduction. On November 9, 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. 2 years later, in December 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. These events, markers of the end of the Cold War, were seen by many as the final triumphant victory of democracy over authoritarianism and communism. Political scientist Francis Fukuyama famously declared the era to be the end of history, suggesting that Western-style liberalism was the ultimate form of human ideology. There was a strong consensus, at least in the West, that liberal freedoms were necessary in any society. But since then, that consensus has been shaken. In the 21st century, democracies have crumbled across the globe, with authoritarian leaders grabbing power and eroding traditional rights protections. Examples abound. Mexico and the Philippines embarked on extrajudicial drug wars. Nicolas Maduro's regime brought a state of near famine onto Venezuela. Poland's Law and Justice Party functionally turned parts of the media into its propaganda arm. In countless other countries, leaders have impinged on citizens' freedom. Even the United States, where liberal freedoms have often been taken for granted, has faced powerful movements and leaders who have disputed the legitimacy of the very rights that underpin our democracy. Yet, in the United States, calls to restrict rights have always run up against a powerful adversary, one that dates back to the country's founding, the Constitution of the United States. This Penguin Liberty series is designed to explore the Constitution's protections, illuminating how its text and values can help us as modern citizens to reflect on the meaning of liberty and understand how to defend it. With rights-based democracy under attack from all angles, it is crucial to engage in ongoing discussion about the meaning of liberty, its limits, and its role in the modern world. Certainly, the ideal of liberty has been present in America since the dawn of the American Revolution, when Patrick Henry reportedly declared, "Give me liberty, or give me death." In 1776, the Declaration of Independence proclaimed liberty an unalienable right, along with life and the pursuit of happiness, enshrining it as a central American aspiration. These statements, however, are only a start in thinking about liberty. Mistakenly, they seem to suggest that liberty is absolute, never limited. But in this series, we will see that idea continually challenged. Various liberties sometimes conflict, and we must deliberate among them. Importantly, the liberty to be free from government intervention, or what the British philosopher Isaiah Berlin called negative liberty, must sometimes be balanced against our liberty as a democratic people to govern in the general interest, an idea he called positive liberty. Thus, the series will also emphasize the importance of liberty, not only in terms of freedom from government intervention, but also as self-government, the freedom of all of us collectively to decide on our own destinies. Ratified in 1788, the Constitution was an attempt to codify the high ideal of liberty as self-government. Through intense debate at the Constitutional Convention, a document was forged that limited government power and gave people a say in how they were to be governed. Its goal was to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Still, many Americans were not convinced the Constitution went far enough in protecting their individual freedoms from government coercion, what Berlin would call negative liberty. Although the push for a Bill of Rights failed at the Constitutional Convention, the first Congress ratified one in 1791. These first 10 amendments to the Constitution focused largely on securing individual liberties. Just over 4,500 words long when originally passed, the U.S. Constitution is the shortest written governing charter of any major democracy. Its brevity belies its impact. Ours is the world's longest surviving written constitution. Some scholars estimate that, at one time, as many as 160 other nations based their constitution, at least in part, on the U.S. Constitution. The United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights from 1948 overlaps significantly with provisions of our Bill of Rights. Individual freedoms that our Constitution champions inspired peoples across the globe. Of course, the original Constitution protected liberty for only a restricted few. As written in 1787, the Constitution did not explicitly outlaw racialized chattel slavery. Almost 700,000 black people were enslaved in the United States at the time of its founding, a fact that the Constitution did nothing to change and tacitly allowed. Article 1 prohibited Congress from outlawing the international slave trade until 1808, and the 3/5 Clause cemented Southern white political power by having enslaved people count toward political representation without allowing them to vote. Not all the framers wanted the Constitution to be tainted by slavery. James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, for example, thought slavery morally wrong. But they were willing to compromise this conviction in order for Southern states to ratify the document they so cherished. Thus was born America's original sin, a legally sanctioned system of racial oppression that persisted formally until the Civil War. Only after an estimated more than 600,000 Americans gave their lives in that bloody conflict was the Constitution amended to outlaw slavery, guarantee equal protection of the laws, and establish that race could deny no citizen access to the franchise. Enslaved Americans were not the only ones left out of the original Constitution's promise of liberty. Women were guaranteed no formal rights under the Constitution, and they were deprived of equal political status until 1920, when suffragists finally succeeded in amending the Constitution to guarantee women the vote. In the founding era, the vote in many states was restricted mainly to white male property owners. These significant failures are reasons to criticize the Constitution, but they should not lead anyone to discount it altogether. First, the Constitution has demonstrated a remarkable resilience and capacity for change. In each of the cases described above, the Constitution was later amended to attempt to rectify the wrong and expand citizens' rights. Second, and perhaps more important, the Constitution's deepest values have often inspired and strengthened the hand of those seeking justice. That's why Frederick Douglass, himself a former enslaved person, became an ardent supporter of the Constitution, even before the passage of the post-Civil War amendments that ended slavery and provided equal rights. In his 4th of July oration in 1852, he praised the Constitution as a glorious liberty document, but added a crucial caveat. It protected liberty only when it was interpreted as it ought to be interpreted. Douglass believed that while many saw the Constitution as a pro-slavery document, its text and values supported broad protections for freedom and equality. Douglass's point, though delivered more than 150 years ago, inspires this Penguin Liberty series. The Constitution is not a static document, nor is it just a set of provisions on paper. The Constitution is a legal document containing specific rules, but it also gives voice to a broader public morality that transcends any one rule. What exactly that public morality stands for has always been up for debate and interpretation. Today, after the passage of the post-Civil War amendments, the Constitution takes a clear stand against racial subordination. But there are still many other vital questions of liberty on which the Constitution offers guidance without dictating.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?